Hi there! In this video, I will show you how Johnny Depp's legal team was over-prepared. That was how Camille Vasquez described her team. I will show that to you using my own perspective as a lawyer when I was watching that trial. You will not watch that trial the same way again or any other trials after you see this video. So stay tuned! My name is Catherine, I'm a lawyer, and I also think differently. After Johnny Depp's overwhelming victory from the jury trial, we saw Ben Chu and Camille Vasquez, two of his lawyers, explain in their TV interviews how their team, specifically their young lawyers, were over-prepared and critical with their victory. Let's see some of their interviews saying that. When I was watching the trial for my legal analysis at Law and Crime, I was actually also watching it from a lawyer's perspective and from someone who used to work for law firms. I used to work for law firms before I had my own law firm myself, and I used to be an associate, the same as Camille Vasquez and the other associates working for Johnny Depp's legal team. So I was curious how they would interact and prepare for the trial. That's why when the lawyers were actually asking questions, as I was listening to the questions, I was also looking at what was happening on the desks of the lawyers and how they were interacting with each other. I'll show you some things that I saw that actually prove that they were over-prepared and worked well as a team, in turn contributed to Johnny Depp winning his case as well. I'm discussing this with you here in this YouTube video because just in case you're thinking of working for a law firm, these are some of the things to look for in a good law firm that would make you feel more part of the team, because I was really impressed with this law firm and just the interactions of the partners and the associates together, because it's not very common. The very first thing I noticed when I was watching this trial was Ben Chu. He is a partner of the firm, and he is obviously the partner of those associates. Partners in law firms are the bosses of the younger associates. We call our bosses partners, and they are usually older and more experienced, and they oversee the younger associates. Ben Chu caught my eye because even though Jessica Meyers was the one asking questions or Camille Vasquez was the one asking questions in court, you see Ben Chu just sitting there in front, comfortable and looking confident and not interfering with his associates' questionings on the podium behind him, or sometimes even when his associates are the ones talking to Judge Ascarati during sidebar. I have to tell you, that is not common in the law firm world. Most law firms, even the ones that I worked for, actually do not allow associates to be the only ones to do those questionings, or you don't really see the partners just sitting back and letting the associates do the trial work or the main work or very important witness testimony questioning. That's because it becomes a hierarchy and also a power struggle between the partner and the associates. Some clients want only the partners to ask the questions or be the main person at trial, because I've heard clients say this: we are paying your firm to represent me because of the partners, not because of the associates. Also, the partner wants the glory, and so they would want to be the one doing the main work. But as you see, for example, in this clip, Ben Chu is perfectly comfortable leaving the work and trusting his associates to do the work.
We have permission to publish it.
You gotta give me
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Day 2, page 589, lines 6 through 8.
All right, if you could just give us a minute to get
Of course.
there. 589.
I'm sorry, what were the lines again?
Page 589, lines 6 through 8.
Wait. Did you say 540 or 589?
589, lines 6 through 8.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I have no objection, Your Honor.
By watching him that way, it made me think and realize that for him to do that, he must absolutely trust his associates and know that they would do a good job. And as we saw, they all did excellent work. So Ben Chu is a good partner for his associates and a good boss. Camille was interviewed by Best Lawyers, and in that interview, she specifically said how Ben Chu was a great partner and also how he trusted the team irrespective of the hierarchy. Let's go ahead and listen to what Camille had to say about Ben Chu.
I work with a wonderful partner, Ben Chu, who again gave young attorneys, not just me, but a lot of us, such a runway and an opportunity to show what we could do. And he put the best people, both Johnny, Ben, and I tried to put the best people to do the job, irrespective of years of experience, irrespective of, our place in the hierarchy of a trial team. It was about putting the best lawyer with the right witnesses.
I'm a firm believer that a good boss creates a good team. That's because a good leader selects the right team players for the team and allows them to shine by giving them the work that is suitable for them and work that they love to do. That way, not just the boss gets the credit, but the whole team gets the credit and shines together. In one of Ben Chu's and Camille Vasquez interview with the Beverly Hills Association in California, Ben Chu actually explains how he and Camille selected the team. Remember, there were 7 main lawyers who were at the trial for Johnny Depp. 2 of them, we know, Ben Chu and Camille Vasquez, and we'll discuss the other ones in a little bit. But here's Ben Chu explaining how they selected the team.
I'll start out because Camille chose a lot of the other members of the team. But when this case started out, it was just a core of Camille, myself, and another attorney. My rule on this case was that anybody who worked on this case had to be materially smarter than me, which is a fairly low bar, and they all cleared that bar. But beyond that, we really chose people with whom we not only respected as lawyers, but whom we respected as people. In other words, people we could get along with, people who had high character, who had a sense of humor, because we knew this was going to be extremely difficult. And although we each brought our own different perspectives to it, and we tried to have some doubters among us, and we did. We had 2 we called Eeyore because they constantly told us we had no chance to win until about the middle of the trial. We did think it was important that the people who worked on this case believed Johnny, because we fervently believed him, or we would not have recommended that he file this case. As you know, Tony, defamation cases are inherently difficult. Truth is a defense. Obviously, all of us do due diligence before we file any complaint for Rule 11 and other reasons. But defamation cases, as you know, you have to be particularly careful. So by the time, Camille and I and a couple of the others who were on at the beginning, we were true believers in the sense that we'd really looked at all the evidence and we'd done a lot of hard digging. And it was important for us to have others who were of like mind and who were willing to, we knew even before we knew it's televised that there might be some criticism. We were kind of running against the tide of Me Too, which, by the way, all of us, including Johnny, support. And we also understand that the vast majority of victims are telling the truth. But as Camille likes to point out, and she'll say it more articulately than I do, there's also a notion of due process that we all have to remember, especially when, we're dealing with controversial subjects, that you have to just kind of wait. There's plenty of time to judge after the fact. So it was important for all of us, to be kind of like mind in terms of how we interacted with each other, and that we we had a belief in the client.
Remember how I mentioned that in most law firms, the partners are the one doing the work and the associates are just behind the scene, either getting the documents for the partners or answering questions for the partners, and then the partners will then ask the question so that they end up getting more of the glory. Ben Chu, in that same interview with the Beverly Hills Association, actually mentioned that, and I thought that was funny how their team is not about that kind of relationship between a partner and the associate. So let's go ahead and check that out.
I agree with Camille. I think they did a phenomenal job. I think it was more interesting for the jury to see different lawyers do different things. I think the judge appreciated it because judges, as you know, tend to like younger lawyers. They don't want to just see the two partners, getting up and snapping their fingers and asking for documents. I mean, that's not the way this team was.
Let's check out who are in Johnny Depp's legal team. In Camille's interview with CBS Morning, she actually wanted a segment about her team. That shows a good leader right there. Let's go ahead and check out who those 7 attorneys are.
So Camille Vasquez, who just turned 38, and Ben Chu, a partner at their law firm Brown Rudnick, brought in 5 associates, including 32-year-old Sam Moniz.
That jury was taking its responsibilities seriously.
And 34-year-old Jessica Meyers to help fill out Depp's legal roster. We met them at their New York City office.
As you saw, there were a group of 7 lawyers that were part of Johnny Depp's team. It's not unusual for a law firm to have a group of lawyers working on one case. What is unusual is giving them credit that way, especially the younger lawyers that we saw. In this next clip, Camille talks about how she selected Sam and Jessica as part of their team and what skills they had to make them appropriate for their tasks. But also, I want you to watch and listen to how Jessica and Sam talks about promoting each other. You'll see Sam promoting Jessica and Jessica promoting Sam and Camille promoting Sam and Jessica. You don't hear them saying, I did this or I did such a great job in doing this. It's not about I, but it's more of the team. I think that's very telling too, because most of the time when you have good leadership that focuses on the team, the individual people in that team picks that up and makes that as part of their own DNA and recognizes other people in the team instead of just thinking about themselves. I really value that in their team, so let's go ahead and check that clip out.
Well, Jessica's a fantastic writer, as is Sam, and I think for people that know a little bit about the law, it's not just what's on camera, right? It's not just us objecting and getting to do the fun things, right, like a witness. And so for Ben and me, I mean, we just identified talent.
So the lack of experience and age didn't seem daunting or wasn't concerning to any of you? To any of you?
You know,
Jess?
in my experience, I think young attorneys, they're closer to sort of the laws and the rules because we're the ones who are sort of researching that. And so I think it was actually an asset overall.
Sam?
And closer to the facts, too. You get in the weeds and the facts. And I think this is a great team. I mean, lack of experience aside, and we do have some experience. Lack of experience
I like
aside.
that, Sam. We have some experience. I'm not trying to say you didn't know what you're doing, but you know what I mean when you look at the big picture, and this was such a big case.
But there was a lot of raw talent on this team, too. I mean, Camille became a star for good reason. Jess did Johnny's direct examination and did a phenomenal job. And, there was a reason she was put up there to do it. It was because the partners and everybody knew she could.
Here's another example of what I was talking about earlier, how it's so unusual to see partners and associates interaction like what Ben Chu and his legal team had. Here, Camille was being interviewed by one of the partners at a large law firm nationwide. And in this interview, she was being asked specifically, was it awkward to have your partner trust you and give you the work as opposed to the partner doing the work? That kind of question indicates to you already how that partner asking the question picked up on how different the relationship is with Ben Chu and his associates. Let's go ahead and listen in.
A couple of questions. Johnny Depp is a client of the firm that you work at, and you're an associate. And so presumably there was a partner who had the relationship with him. And I'm just reading between the lines here. It sounds like you and he connected, and he got to the point where he trusted you, and he was looking to you to be his legal advisor generally on potential disputes, at least. I'm sure he has deal counsel. Was that at all awkward, that transition from a partner who had the relationship to you?
No, it wasn't awkward. And that's, I mean, I think that the partner, right, who is wonderful and someone I greatly admire and is a mentor of mine, Ben Chu, the relationship was encouraged by Ben, right? And I think Ben and Johnny have their own relationship, and Johnny definitely goes to Ben for advice, and we worked seamlessly together. Ben and I did. Okay. I think that, to some extent, Johnny really appreciated the advice that I gave because I'm a woman. And I think that he understood and appreciated that sometimes a woman's perspective is going to be different than a man's perspective. And I think for him to make decisions, he wanted to get both of our perspectives. So I definitely developed a very close relationship with Johnny, but that's not in any way to take away from the relationship he has and still has with Ben, my partner.
In this same interview, Camille Vasquez mentions that one of the high points of the trial for them was Johnny Depp's testimony. And we all saw how after he testified, he won the court of public opinion. But did you remember who was the one doing the direct examination of Johnny Depp? It wasn't Ben Chu. It was not Camille Vasquez. It was Jessica Meyers. And let's hear first what Camille Vasquez has to say about Johnny Depp's direct examination and why it was very important for Johnny Depp.
I think there were a few. I think that Johnny's testimony was a key point for us. It was the first time that the world, really the jury, right, in this case, the jury got to hear from him in his own words, in exactly the pace that he speaks at. And it was such an emotional moment for all of us that knew him, because to give this person the freedom and the venue to finally say, I didn't do this, and let me explain my experience in this relationship and why I'm bringing this lawsuit, was so incredibly important for us. Irrespective of what the verdict was going to be, we needed to give him the opportunity to speak and speak freely. And just to give him that gift was something that we had worked incredibly hard at. So I think when he finally did his direct examination and then was cross-examined, and I think he did a phenomenal job in cross-examination, we were just so relieved and thought to ourselves, again, irrespective of what happens, we are so grateful that we were able to give him this opportunity. So I think that was a high point for us.
Now, let's take a look at Jessica Meyers explaining why Johnny Depp's direct examination by her will be unforgettable. So let's go ahead and take a listen with her interview with CBS Morning.
You did the direct examination of Johnny Depp.
Your Honor, we call Mr. John C. Depp.
I had done a witness at a trial before, but this was the first time I had done a direct examination.
All right, Jessica. So take us inside your head that morning.
There was a level of nerves. I think I kept waiting for this overwhelming sense of nerves, but I think, once you get up there, it just feels kind of natural, and you just, do what you do.
Did you hear that? That was Jessica Meyers' first direct examination of her entire legal career, and it was of Johnny Depp. From now on, she's gonna say, my first direct exam was Johnny Depp, because you never forget your first court appearance, your first direct examination, your first cross-examination. And she had Johnny Depp as her first direct examination, also on live nationwide televised, not just nationwide, globally watched by so many people. And she did it. And she succeeded and she did an awesome job. Wow. On top of that is the fact that Ben Chu mentioned in one of his interviews with Jesse Weber of Lloyd Prime how Johnny Depp writes his own script and it was his own words. Of course, as lawyers, we can prepare our clients but not coach them. There's a difference between preparing a client and overcoaching them. Preparing a client means you give them some guidelines and you try to elicit their words and their testimony and the truth from them, as opposed to coaching them, which is telling them what they're supposed to say just to win the case, even if it's not true. You never coach, you always prepare your client. And Ben Chu, by saying that they were nervous because they didn't know what Johnny Depp was going to say, but as we see, Jessica was prepared with her questions, so that's very fascinating. So let's go ahead and take a look what Ben Chu had to say about Johnny Depp's testimony.
You talk about this case, when Depp testified, right after that, right during that, that is when you saw all these people come to Fairfax, Virginia. You saw people started waiting online at 1 a.m. to get tickets. It's when the social media interest in this case absolutely grew. It all started with Johnny Depp taking the stand. And for a plaintiff in his position, testifying to the world that he's not an abuser, that Heard publicly lied about him in a national publication, him taking the stand is a very big deal. So I asked you about this. What was going on behind the scenes, and were you or anybody on the legal team concerned?
We were nervous in the sense that he writes he writes his scripts when he is performing roles. And this is no different. I mean, we had suggestions, as any attorneys would, but ultimately what he says is all in his own words. So we knew, or we strongly believed, that he was going to be consistent with everything and truthful. And so in that sense, we weren't that worried about him. And he didn't have to be reminded about dates and events. I mean, his memory is quite clear about what happened and what did not happen. I thought he was terrific.
And what about under cross-examination by Benjamin Rottenborn? You know, it got tense at times. What were your thoughts on how the cross?
Well, our main concern, as with any witness, is that he not lose his cool, because we knew that they would come at him with a male, and in this case, Ben Rottenborn. So when we practiced, we had one of our senior attorneys, Wayne Dennison, come in and play the role of attack dog. And so I think Johnny was prepared for that, and I think he kept his composure under cross. I think he did a very good job.
With that in mind, let's take a look at a short testimony by Johnny Depp on the stand when Jessica Meyers was questioning.
Okay. All right. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mr. Depp.
Good afternoon.
Can you please tell the jury why you're here today?
Yes. About 6 years ago, Ms. Heard made some quite heinous and disturbing, brought these disturbing criminal acts against me that were not based in any species of truth. It was a complete shock. Since I knew that there was no truth to it whatsoever, I felt it my responsibility to stand up not only for myself in that instance, but stand up for my children, who at the time were 14 and 16, and so they were in high school, and I thought it was diabolical that my children would have to go to school and have their friends or people in the school approach them with the infamous People magazine cover with Miss Heard with a dark bruise on her face. And then it just kept, it kept multiplying. It just kept getting bigger and bigger.
Another critical part of the jury trial was the discussion of jury instructions by the lawyers with Judge Ascarati. In this next clip, watch how two associates for Johnny Depp's legal team are actually in charge of discussing the jury instructions with Judge Ascarati, and check out what Ben Chu was doing while two associates were doing that. The two associates that I talk about, their names are Andrew Crawford and Sam Moniz. Andrew Crawford is the first one who talks, and Sam Moniz is the one sitting next to him, and we saw in CBS Morning interview. So check this one out.
Well, that's what you already had. This is
No, because we had you must determine whether any added content that was added constitutes a republication. I think it'd be better to just delete the last two sentences than to add the sentence at the end.
Your Honor, I just want to note, I don't think that adding content is a requirement for republication. I mean, we've found a number of cases that when somebody repeats a defamatory statement, that they're as liable as the original defamer.
I thought that was hilarious how Ben Chu was just leaning back, sitting there with his glasses and working on his phone while he lets his associates take the lead on very important language that will be taken by the jury in the jury deliberation. I think that's wonderful. That shows not that he wasn't paying attention, but that shows that he trusts his two associates to handle the job, and he can then rest and do something else better with his time. Another pivotal moment of the trial that we need to discuss is Amber Heard's cross-examination. And we all know who did that. That was Camille Vasquez. So let's chat about that. I'll show you portions of that cross-examination that I thought was very interesting to watch what's happening, not just with Camille asking the question, but what was happening on the table with the other lawyers of Johnny Depp. But before I do that, I wanted to point out that Camille had a really good interview with the best lawyers again, where she mentioned that she wanted to recognize the team, that Amber Heard's cross-examination is not just Camille's cross-examination, but actually the team's cross-examination. I think that's a very great attribute of a leader, again, to acknowledge the entire team behind that cross-examination, because it was a phenomenal and effective and seamless cross-examination. Let's go ahead and check out what Camille said about her team during this Best Lawyers interview.
I think what's really important for me is to recognize also the team that supported me throughout this. I often told them, especially when it came to Ms. Heard's cross-examination, that yes, I was the attorney that was tasked with doing it, but this was our cross-examination. This was Mr. Depp's cross-examination. This was the team's cross-examination.
In this next clip that I'll be showing you about Amber Heard's cross-examination, you will hear Camille Vasquez asking Amber Heard questions while Jessica Meyers in the back had the same outline of questions and were checking off each of the questions that Camille were asking. I guarantee you the other members of their team as well have a list of those questions and are following along so that they can help her out if needed. But just take a look at this clip and see how Jessica was on top of every single question that she was asking. That is critical because that means that if Camille needs help or needs something, then they'll know when to help her out. I'll show you that as well. So let's take a look at what I'm talking about first.
That is correct. I only took pictures of the mirrors.
So there's no picture of that damaged phone?
I didn't take a picture of it, no.
Okay. So back to the phone smashing. You watched Mr. Depp smash the phone, right?
That's correct. I watched it.
And you testified that you were, quote, watching the phone every single time he pulled his hand back, end quote.
That's correct.
And according to you, this is when Mr. Depp lost the tip of his finger, right?
It is my best guess. I didn't notice his finger come off, obviously. I was watching him smash the phone and watching the pieces break while he was doing it.
Well, it's not your best guess, Ms. Heard.
That is my best guess, yes.
Okay.
Here's another clip of how Jessica Meyers was trying to follow along Camille's questioning. And when Camille was asking Amber Heard if Dr. Kipper was her doctor and Amber Heard tries to say no in a roundabout way, then the next thing Camille does is try to impeach her using her deposition testimony. And even before Camille mentions that deposition testimony, Jessica already knew that that was where the question was going because she has that outline in front of her that she's checking off. And you see Jessica go ahead and turn around even before Camille mentions that deposition so that Jessica can go ahead and get those deposition transcripts ready for Camille to take and give one copy to opposing counsel, one copy to the judge, and another copy to Amber Heard. Trying to find the correct deposition transcripts and trying to actually find those pages is one of the most tedious things that lawyers have to look for because we're trying to quote a page and a line of the deposition in hours and hours or pages and pages of deposition transcripts. And so for Jessica Meyers to have that ready for Camille so that she can have, again, a seamless cross-examination is so helpful. Again, an indication of the team working together. So let's go ahead and take a look.
Dr. David Kipper is Mr. Depp's, or was Mr. Depp's physician, right?
I believe he still is.
But he was at the time.
Yes, that's correct.
And he was also your physician.
He also saw me.
No, not saw you. He was your physician, correct, Ms. Heard?
Johnny was the client, but he also treated me.
All right, let's please pull up. Do you remember giving testimony in this case in a deposition, Ms. Heard?
Yes, I do. I've given a couple.
If we could please pull up the deposition transcript, day 2. At 589, lines 6 through 8. May I approach?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
In this next clip, I'll show you how Jessica is not the only one helping Camille during her cross-examination. Ben Chu also did. Throughout Camille's cross-examination, we saw that Ben Chu would just be sitting back and letting Camille handle the cross-examination. Again, that's a good way of showing his trust on Camille that she can do the job herself without him, the partner, interfering. We don't even see Ben Chu all the time going to Judge Ascarati with the associates during sidebar. Again, that's such a level of trust that they can handle themselves even with the judge and opposing counsel. In this clip, we'll show you how Ben Chu wrote a question himself and handed it to Camille so that Camille can read it. And then later on, you'll see how Jessica again was able to provide Camille not just a document but a big stack of binder. When you're a trial attorney, the things that you're doing in front of the jury are all choreographed, if as much as possible. And your team helping you choreograph that really helps. And what I mean about that is by Jessica going ahead and handing Camille a big binder, it was just so huge and heavy. By handing that to her, everything was graceful. Camille didn't have to look awkward carrying that. And at some point, Jessica takes that binder away from Camille's hands and place it somewhere else and just focus on the question.
I'm sorry, I don't follow your question. Sorry.
You testified under oath, quote, "The entirety of my divorce settlement was donated to charity," end quote. That statement wasn't true.
It is true. I pledged the entirety to charity.
The statement...
When you say you buy a house, you don't pay for the entire house at one time. You pay it over time.
I'm not asking, Ms. Heard.
All right, next question, please.
Thank you. That statement isn't true today, as you sit here today, is it?
It is true. I pledged the entirety.
But you didn't donate it.
Unfortunately,
you didn't donate it. It's a yes or no.
I haven't been able to to fulfill those obligations.
So that's a no, right, Ms. Heard?
I made the pledge. I want to be very clear. I pledged the entirety. I haven't been able to fulfill those pledges because I've been sued.
You had all of the $7 million for 13 months before Mr. Depp sued you, and you chose not to pay it to the charities you pledged it to. Is that correct, Ms.
I
Heard?
disagree with your characterization of that.
Let's look at your sworn testimony from the UK. correct, Your Honor.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Ms. Vasquez, do you want me to close the shades?
That would be
Okay. There's this light coming across. And
So I appreciate that.
Has
It's
to be a little
probably good
uncomfortable.
light. Thank you, Your Honor.
all right.
In this next clip, we'll see Elaine Bredehoft do her redirect examination of Amber Heard. And while Elaine is asking her question, you can see how Camille was not the only one listening to Elaine's questions, but Jessica Meyers and also Sam Moniz were also listening and giving Camille input as to what proper objections to make. Specifically, how even at one portion, Sam leans in to Camille and he is 2 seats away from Camille, but he leans in and tries to tell Camille, hey, there's a lack of foundation objection, and Camille immediately says lack of foundation. So go ahead and take a look at this.
What, if any, you were asked if you had, it was suggested that you had not produced this in discovery. Is that true?
Objection, Your Honor, leading.
Your Honor, she absolutely did that.
It's leading. It's leading question, though. I'll sustain the objection as to leading.
What, if anything, did you do to produce medical records to the defendant, to the plaintiff in this case?
I turned over all of my devices, and they had Johnny's team had a third party or someone they selected as a third party go and pull all relevant documents from those devices, which I handed over.
Do you know how many were handed over?
Hundreds of thousands, I believe. Maybe.
Objection, Your Honor, lack of foundation.
If you think about it, Elaine, during her redirect of Amber Heard, was actually up against 3 lawyers of Johnny Depp. Not just Camille Vasquez, but 3 lawyers who were all thinking of objections. And even though Camille was the one on the mic saying it, there were 3 people thinking of different objections to say against her questioning. And that's one of the main reasons why Elaine was unable to ask intelligible questions during that redirect, because Johnny Depp's team just kept on going at her with all of these objections, one after another, one after another, one after another, until we see Elaine actually saying at one point to Judge Ascarati, Judge, I'm trying, meaning I'm trying to ask a question here, but I can't. This next clip is one of my favorite, where after the end of Amber Heard's cross-examination and Elaine Bredehoft's redirect, we see Camille leaning her head on Jessica Meyer's shoulder and hugging Jessica as a thank you. Also, Ben Chu hugs Camille and Johnny Depp hugs Camille, because this is a team effort among all of them and they know they succeeded with that cross-examination. That's why Camille was correct in describing that cross-examination as the team's examination, not just hers. Now you know why.
I don't have any more questions, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. All right. Ma'am, you can have a seat next to your attorney, okay? You can go ahead and have a seat next to her. That's fine. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take our afternoon recess then for 15 minutes. Do not discuss the case with anybody and don't do any outside research, okay?
Ben Chu also gave his insights as to the differences between his legal team and Amber Heard's legal team throughout the trial. He gave this assessment during his interview with the Beverly Hills Bar Association, and this is the part that I mentioned where he said he was being teased that he only brings sandwiches to the associates, but in reality it was his day off. So let's go ahead and take a listen.
Camille and the young lawyers really fought it out tooth and nail. And it was really important. And I think that was, if not dispositive, I think that was really important because, and this is kind of a dominant theme, they really had 2 lawyers doing almost everything. They had a team of competent lawyers. They had lawyers who could have done more. But for whatever reason, and maybe it was a client imperative, we don't know, it was pretty much just the 2 of them. And they both were very good, but they were getting worn around the edges. And it showed. I mean, not in closing. Of course, you're going to have your energy for the closing and the opening and the big witnesses like, Amber and Johnny. But at things like deposition excerpts, the partners would kind of made fun of me when I was just bringing sandwiches to the team when they would do those arguments. But I think they envied me by the end of the process, because for me, it was kind of a day off. And that's something I found tedious, but I think they did much better than I would have done. So I think it's really important to utilize the team you've got. And they want to do it, and they will rise to the occasion. If you've chosen wisely, they will rise to the occasion.
As Ben Chu said, because he would step back and the other members of the team too, like Camille and Jessica, would step back and let the other associates deal with other critical parts of the trial, they were able to take turns in having a day off or just not having too much pressure for that day and recharge their batteries. In a 6-week trial like this, they would have been so exhausted, because when you're at trial, you're not just at the trial working all that 8-12 hours, but after you get out of the courtroom, you're still working because you're trying to prepare for the next day. And usually you get such little sleep, and then you wake up early so you can prepare for that day. That's why having the opportunity to rest at any time is important. And that is why too, I think Camille mentioned in that same interview how their team was able to pivot, meaning change their course, and if they're having a bad day, they figure out a way to make it more effective the next day, because there are multiple heads thinking of the strategy as opposed to just 2 lawyers who are always dominating that trial for that team. Now, it's not uncommon to only have 2 lawyers in a trial. That's because they're not as big of a case as Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's cases. But here we see groups of lawyers for both sides, not just Johnny Depp, but Amber Heard's side also had groups of lawyers there. But here we see how Johnny Depp's group of lawyers were actually working together to present the best case possible according to the truth and the facts and the law. Let's go ahead and listen to Camille's interview where she mentioned how their team was able to course correct.
You have to be able to course correct. You have to be able to pivot. Not everything is going to go your way. And if there's something that I learned is you have to plan also for things not to go your way so that you have a solution in place. You should think worst case scenario. I'm going to get every objection. I'm going to deal with a witness that's going to be sympathetic. How do I handle that when that situation arises? And I think something that we did quite well as a team is we were able to pivot. And I'm not certain that the other side was so effective at that. And it really surprised me, if I'm being honest, that such experienced attorneys didn't seem to be able to course correct and pivot. But it's a lesson, I think, for all of us, because yes, the case went our way and the verdict speaks for itself and it was definitive. But we had bad days too, and it's about how you course correct.
In Brown Rudnick's website, they listed the number of attorneys that participated in this team, namely Ben Chu and partners Wayne Dennison and partner Rebecca Lecaroz, associates Stephanie Calnan, Andrew Crawford, Yarelyn Mena, Jessica Meyers, Samuel Moniz, and Camille Vasquez. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, but my intent is really to honor you and appreciate you for what you guys have done and for showing us what a good team looks like behind the scene and at trial. Again, I want to remind you that I'm showing this to you so you can have an idea of what to look for in a good firm. Majority of the firms do not operate like this, which is sad, because if they do, then they can really tap into the strengths of their associates and use their strengths so that the trial will succeed, or the case of their clients, whether it goes to trial or not, actually gets the best result. But also also, you can apply this lesson here, not just at trial or if you're a lawyer, but if you're looking for a job or a company to work for, this is the kind of teamwork and acknowledgement of your skills that is important to look for and watch out for. Because don't give up hope that that kind of company or job isn't out there. It's out there, and hopefully there are more employers and more companies who will create that kind of culture. I am trying to create that culture myself by building a purpose-driven company, and our purpose is we inspire together. So hopefully you'll join us in that mission as well. Have a great day. If you learned something new from this video, please go ahead and click subscribe. That's the red button down there. And if you have any questions or any legal topics that you'd like me to cover, feel free to go ahead and place that in the comments below, and I'll try my best to make a YouTube video out of that. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!